YB stays on your neck.
Yo, my dons, make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and obviously hit the bell for notifications. So we just heard there from Anthony a la Cash Cow, Joshua by way of Eddie, cover up, Hearn. Now, this is really something I hadn't given much thought to, even in the lead up to the fight. I've always heard certain media individuals, they always say, "Oh, AJ, do you think you're taking your eye off the ball, talking about Wilder and Fury?" And from my point of view, I've never been in that kind of pressure cooker. I've never been in that world level sporting environment. So when I hear media people ask that question, I think, what you want about answering it? You hear even sports people say, "Oh, I'm not answering questions about that. I'm focusing on this guy." And I understand that to an extent, but for me, from where I'm sitting, whilst I haven't experienced it, I think to myself, how is you answering a question in a particular interview? How is that taking your mind off of the task at hand? Does that make sense? We all know, or you know better than anyone, that you're fighting Andi Ruiz on June 1st. It's not just AJ. Every fighter. Oh yeah, I don't want to get distracted. Or media people saying, "Do you think you're taking your eye off the ball?" How is answering some questions about a future fight taking your eye off the ball? I don't understand that. Maybe there is some subconscious things which go on when you do spend more time talking about Wilder and Fury than you do Ruiz. But for me, when you're living it, as in you go into the Ruiz press conference, you're seeing Ruiz fight week, etc., etc., I find it hard to believe that talking about having a few questions, in reality, in one day, I bet Joshua spent less than 10, 20 minutes actually talking about Fury or Wilder. Even if you spent an hour, I don't understand how spending an hour talking about Wilder or Fury days before the fight can impact your performance. However, other people argue to the contrary. They say, well, yeah, it can distract people. And we've just heard there from AJ and Eddie Hearn, where he's essentially said that he's looking forward to the Ruiz rematch because there's nothing else. There's no other questions. It's all in on this fight. But like I said, for me personally, I don't see how that changes much, because fundamentally nothing's changed. Whether you get asked a few questions about Fury or Wilder, and do you know what I mean? In my opinion, you should be able to be just as focused whether you get asked a few questions or not. Now, but in reality, I guess it's clear at this point. Everyone sitting down now knows the deal. This is it, make or break. There is no Wilder or Fury fight after this fight. Now, don't get me wrong. If AJ loses this fight, they might be able to drag a Fury or Wilder fight later on if he fights a few stiffs. But really, the whole thing is dead in my opinion at that point. If Joshua loses this rematch, because Ruiz, it's not like Ruiz, in my opinion at least, it's not like Ruiz is some killer. Yeah? He went 7 rounds with Dimitrenko and couldn't hurt him. This Ruiz guy's really not all that. He's not. AJ made him look like Superman that night. But in reality, going off his career, maybe Andi Ruiz, in the 2 months between the Dimitrenko fight, maybe Ruiz did some, I don't know, maybe he's been talking to UFOs. Maybe he got some alien genetic therapy going on, where they've altered his genetics. I don't know, that's the only thing that could explain it for me, because how can you fight Dimitrenko 2 months earlier and can't even hurt the dude, but you fight AJ and AJ can't even hold a shot? Yeah? And my point is, the real Andi Ruiz is a pretty average dude based on his career. Yeah? AJ was that bad that he made Ruiz look really good. But 2 months before that, he couldn't do squat. But anyway, my point is that this is make or break now. So I'm glad there's going to be no confusion for this one. There's going to be no concussion. There's going to be no conspiracies. There's going to be no... And even though AJ hasn't made any of these excuses about, oh, well, I took my eye off the ball about Wilder and Fury. He hasn't made them excuses. But the fact he's saying here that he's glad and he's kind of relieved that... Not relieved, but he's happy to just focus on Ruiz. Maybe it did play a factor in that. Because maybe it's the energy you give out. Maybe the energy you spend. Because remember, maybe a day or two before the fight, he sat down and said, listen, after this fight, I want to sit down with Wilder and Fury. Maybe putting all that energy, maybe it does take something out of you. That's not my base case, though. Because AJ, throughout his career, he's been asked questions about what's next. And he's never had a problem before. This, for me, is something a lot more fundamental than being asked a few questions about different fighters. And this is what I've believed. Up until this fight, I've firmly believed that AJ was a very particular individual. He was a person who actually performs better under the lights. Historically speaking, when has Joshua choked before? As an example. You can't give me an example. Fact. Especially given his such low experience, being able to go to the World Championships, being able to win medals at World Championships, being able to win Olympic gold. That's not a dude who chokes or struggles with stuff like that, or has an inability to be able to compartmentalise. Alright, the Fury and Wilder stuff is for the future, and this Ruiz fight's now. And he said it himself, he was prepared. He was 100% prepared, and he was 100% focused. But now, not a contradiction, but he's saying, in fact, it doesn't even need to be a contradiction. The bottom line is, whatever you can talk about Wilder and Fury all you want. The Ruiz fight is all that matters now. All that matters. 100%. People are saying, these dons out here, these goons talking about, oh yeah, well, the Ruiz fight doesn't really matter. This matters alright. Yeah? For me, the career's done if he loses to Ruiz again. If Ruiz was Mike Tyson 2.0, it wouldn't be a big deal. Because, well, that's how it goes sometimes. This Ruiz cat, historically, isn't all that. Really not. Look at the Parker fight. Parker, that fight was close, but Ruiz did win. My point is, Parker, who's smaller than AJ and not as good, he was able to box with Ruiz. Not outbox him, but he boxed him to a decision win, even though he lost the fight, but it was close. My point is, Parker was able to box. Parker was on the back foot the whole night, and he was able to do that against Ruiz, even though he's just as small as Ruiz, and not get hurt and not get buzzed and whatnot. So I find it hard to believe that AJ, who's a lot longer and a lot taller and has more power, I find it hard to believe that he couldn't have outboxed him. But that's why all of these things I'm saying, it implies that there was something real fishy going on. Real fishy. Now I'll be intrigued to see what you guys think in general. Do you believe that, or what's your general philosophy around this whole business of asking questions before and taking your mind off? Do you think genuinely fighters can become distracted with fights in the future? And like I say, I just can't understand how does being asked a few questions, even if you want to orientate your mind to the future, how does that take away from the task at hand? I don't get it. It's different if they were saying, alright, you know what, AJ, I want you to fight Fury on the Friday night before, or I'll tell you what, you're going to have a fight with Fury the day after. I'd get that. I'd get how that could impact it. But this is all speculation about having a meeting. We're only setting up a meeting here. We're not setting up an actual fight. It'd be different if they were saying, oh yeah, on Sunday the fight's gonna be booked for versus Wilder. I get how that could take away from your mentality for the Ruiz fight. Could you start thinking, oh wait there a minute, this Wilder fight's booked in. I've got to prepare. I've got to make sure I don't get hurt in this fight so I can fight next week, etc., etc. I just can't understand how thinking about Wilder and Fury takes away from your performance, especially of an athlete at this level. And that's not just AJ, that's for every athlete. You always hear the media, and it irritates me, you always hear the media saying these things. Oh, do you think you're taking the eye off the task at hand? But then again, Lennox Lewis arguably did that. But then again, when Lennox Lewis lost, he admitted that he wasn't training properly. AJ said he had 100% camp, and he was 100% focused on Ruiz. So when it comes down to it, some people are saying, in fact quite a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, the reason AJ lost was because he wasn't focused, he didn't have his eye on the ball. Whereas where I'm coming from is, all of you man who think that, oh yeah, this AJ fight's going to be different because AJ's going to be focused, or AJ's going to be training properly, I don't believe that. I believe AJ trained properly then. I believed he was 100% prepared mentally as well. Look, there's a lot of people sitting there speculating, oh no, it's just because he wasn't focused. I think he was fully focused, like he said. I just think there was a big fat factor out there. Nothing to do with focus, nothing to do with training. And a great bit of evidence for that is, look at the Joey Deweyko interview from a week ago, or with Fight Hype at the weekend. He came out and said, listen, Joshua was 100% training hard, dedicated, no party, no nothing. He was a proper, like normal, as we hear about. He was 100% dedicated. So it kind of dispels all the myths that, oh, he took his eye off the ball. But even Eddie Hearn's been saying that, oh, I think maybe the Fury and Wilder talk. But like I said, I find it hard to believe because look at the Parker fight. He had the same speculations. The Povetkin fight, the same speculations. And it didn't have an issue. So I just want to make this video to make sure you AJ fans out there, please don't get twisted thinking that him being more focused is going to make a difference. He was 100% focused for this fight before it. What's going to make a difference is hopefully, was that he was concussed this time. And we're going to know in the fight, if he gets into the fight and he's going 50-50 again, we'll know that he was 100% last time and just got caught. If he goes in there and murks Ruiz, we're going to know that there was clearly a big beeping red flag out there. But anyway, actually, let me kind of conclude and evaluate my thoughts. I've been quite, not pessimistic, but I've been quite critical of this whole business. But then again, I've just read this article, and it says, Anthony Joshua believes it's refreshing to go into a fight, not having to worry about who he will face afterwards. And that's something potentially I've overlooked. I've been sitting here saying I don't believe the impact can be that great, but refreshing, AJ's not saying he's relieved. AJ's not saying anything else. He's saying it's refreshing. It's nice. It's a positive. Yeah? It's not reducing a negative thing. It's actually a positive thing. There's literally no outside things whatsoever, which is also a fair point. Whilst it may not be that detrimental, even their marginal, even if people asking questions and speculations and whatnot, even if it's tiny. But that, for sure, factually speaking, we know AJ did factually give energy towards Wilder and Fury before the fight. In my opinion, it wasn't a lot, but still, like he says here, it's refreshing. A tiny bit of energy he will save for this Ruiz fight, which won't be expended. It's 100% all in on Ruiz, and that's why I love this rematch coming up, I actually love it, because there's a lot of Ruiz fans who have climbed out from under the woodworks, climbed out from under the deep, stinking rocks they've been hiding under, and they've all popped up talking about how great Ruiz is, and this is all in. People have called AJ chinny, they said he was no good, it proves all these things, it proves he's no good and he's crap and whatnot. We're gonna see. There's gonna be, if the fight happens in the US or wherever it happens in the UK, there's gonna be a lot of pressure on AJ, and this is gonna show. I believe he's got one of the best, strongest mentalities in the game. That's what I think. And I'm going with the concussion line. If I had a gun to my head now, I'd say he had a concussion and a panic attack in the changing room. But I keep saying, it's a lovely thing about it. We're gonna see exactly what is what here. If AJ comes out and steamrolls him, I'll come on here and be like, listen, I tried to tell you. Because from what I've seen, this man is a psychological beast. Look at the Dylan White fight, like I explained yesterday. This dude loves it in there. He loves to inflict damage. Yeah? That weren't the right dude in there that night. I don't care what no one says. And maybe and if I'm wrong, you know what, I'll come on here. I can promise you this. If he loses to Andi Ruiz in this next fight, I will come on here. I promise to, well, you'll see. There won't be no excuses made from the YB, not one. Even if it came out that there was actual sparring videos of AJ getting knocked out. Because at that point, you can only make a mistake once. If he's sparring a week before again, that's his business. That's his choice. There will be no speculation of any conspiracies going on for this next one. Not even if someone literally had video evidence of it, time and date stamped. I wouldn't be reading into it, because at this point he picked his team, he's made his bed, now he's got to lie in it. So let's see how it goes down. I'm excited. I can't wait, because I've got a feeling this performance is going to show. Well, it will. Either way, it's going to show what AJ's about, and I think it's going to be a devastating performance. Ruiz fans are going to be sitting there, they're going to get their popcorn out, and he's going to get murked. Now, I've said this before, so you can take my words with a pinch of salt, but that's how I'm feeling. I just can't see it, I really can't. And I keep saying the same thing, but I want to emphasise it. We're going to know what AJ is after this fight. If he does what I say he's going to do, that will prove he's everything and more. If he folds and he's mentally not as aggressive and a bit apprehensive, then he wasn't the fighter we all think he is. Simple as that. There's a lot of AJ fans out there who say, oh, no, try and defend, and I'm sorry. If he goes into this fight and he ain't got that same thing, he's lost it. The money, in my opinion, has taken it out of him. It's stripped him of that meanness and that ruthlessness. There'll be no excuses in my book for losing this fight. If it was the Wilder fight, you can make excuses. Well, Wilder's a better athlete, Wilder's quicker, Wilder's more powerful. This Ruiz guy isn't quicker. He's not more powerful. He's not got higher IQ. He's not got a better resume. He's not got better genetics. There's no reason at all for this guy to be winning a rematch. No reason at all. And I want to see AJ happy in there. I want to see him enjoying his work, loving his work, like he did in the Dylan White fight. He loved it in there. He loved it. He loved getting hit with shots and coming back. He revelled in it. It was a menacing performance. That's what we need to see in here. And to be honest, What I will say is, if I don't see that menacing look, win or lose, even if he wins the fight, if I don't see that menacing look he had in the Klitschko and in the Dillian Whyte fight, I want him to retire, win or lose, because you can't, this game, you can't do it if you're not, in my opinion, you can do it, but you're not gonna get to the same, your performances will not be to the same level. You have to be menacing. It's like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson used to be known as Iron Mike Tyson. I remember one of the commentators said, "Has Iron Mike turned into Mellow Mike?" And that's what happened after the Lennox Lewis fight. Mike Tyson was wiping the tears or the blood, off of Lennox Lewis's eye, and the commentators were saying that Mike's just mellowed out, and that's what happens. Money or life circumstances or whatever. This game meant for mellow. It's meant for the mellow-hearted. You got to be menacing. #menacing. That's what it needs to be for me.